27-17, the final here at Raymond James Stadium, along with the PewterReport.com publisher Scott Reynolds. And boy, this one was ugly for the Buccaneers. Untimely penalties killing them today. 10 for 79 yards. And Scott, this has been a reoccurring theme for this team. How do they change this problem?
I don't know. You look at it, Chris. The first rule of football is don't beat yourself. And bad teams find a way to beat themselves. And once again, the Buccaneers find a new way to lose a football game. The penalties weren't catastrophic, as you said, under 100 yards worth of penalties, but the timeliness of them and the magnitude of that was certainly something that really hurt the Buccaneers. You look at O'Neal Cousins' 15-yard penalty, which Lovie Smith called stupid. You know, they were able to overcome that. They got the first down on 3rd and 20, but it's the time element. It's the yardage that was backed up that cost the Buccaneers when they're trailing by 10 points at the end.
And like you alluded to a little bit before this, that the young penalties, Austin Seferian-Jenkins taking the unsportsmanlike conduct call in the end zone by stepping on the football. Yeah. 3rd down call right here with Jonathan Banks with hands to the face. They can't get off the field in this situation, and it's something that they need to fix because Lovie seems to preach it, but we're not seeing the product of it.
Yeah, that's really the disheartening thing is these players keep making these mistakes, and it's really stupid football, and you're seeing a 1-8 record as a result. And I think that we saw a roster overhaul, Chris, last year, this offseason really with the draft obviously, but also with the slew of free agents coming in. I think a lot of these faces that have come in the door this year are going to be going right out the door. I think you're going to see another roster overhaul. DeMar Dotson was telling me in the locker room, not enough guys in this team are sick and tired of losing yet, kind of picking up the baton that Gerald McCoy had last week after the loss at Cleveland. So I think that from the veteran standpoint, they're frustrated by the fact that their teammates are not sick and tired of losing enough to do something about it on Sundays.
Yeah, talking with Gerald McCoy, he was absolutely speechless in the locker room afterward. He didn't have anything to add. In fact, he just wanted to say, I want to be left alone today, guys. Well, the fans almost wanted to be left alone in the fourth quarter. Exodus came about here at Ray J. They haven't won here since week 14 of last season. Yeah. How do you continually put butts in the seats when you put a product like this on the field?
I'll tell you what, I think every fan deserves a medal for coming out and seeing this team, really. I mean, Tampa Bay gets criticized for being a bandwagon-type town, but there are a lot of diehard Buccaneer fans that do put up with the losing, that are hopeful, that come here, that visit PewterReport.com, that loyal group of fans, that 30,000 plus that are going to be here, rain or shine, win or lose. And they deserve, like I said, a medal. They deserve a ribbon, an award for undergoing a loss in every single game this season. It's been tough on them. And Chris, you look at the remaining schedule, I don't know where the next win's going to come.
Oh, yeah.
This team could be destined for 1-15 the way it's playing right now. The first rule of football, again, don't beat yourself. This is a team that week in and week out is there, but not getting the job done at the end. This is now the 3rd straight week in a row where the offense has given the team a lead in the fourth quarter, and the defense has not done enough to hold that lead and come away with the victory.
Let's talk about the quarterback situation. Josh McCown back behind center once again today after leaving against the Falcons up in the Georgia Dome in that blowout. It was week 3, I believe it was. Yeah. So takes over from Mike Glennon. What was the difference with him at quarterback as opposed to Glennon?
Well, I think his mobility. He picked up some first downs where that was not exactly Mike Glennon's strong suit, sometimes coming up a yard short while scrambling. We saw McCown keep the chains moving, keep drives alive, extending plays with his feet. He was the leading rusher today for the Buccaneers. That's never a good thing, but he did pick up, I think, 40 yards on the ground at least. And then you saw that improvisational play where, on 3rd and 20, he steps up in the pocket, runs up, initially gets flagged for being over the line of scrimmage, but completes a 34-yard gain to Mike Evans. So I think that mobility factor is really what kind of prompted Lovie Smith to get him back under center. You saw improved pass protection to a degree at Cleveland, but in the 2 previous weeks against Minnesota and against Baltimore, 5 sacks. This offensive line is not very good. And so at least with McCown, you have that threat with the legs and can extend plays. He played marginally better than Glennon today, but did have 2 interceptions towards the end of the game, trying to make things happen. Kind of forgivable, but at the same time, 17 points. This team gets stuck and capped at that number, and you're not going to win games in the modern-day NFL scoring 17 points.
Certainly not, and I want to add something to your point. Josh McCown, in between the 3rd and 4th quarter, ran down the sideline and said, come on, guys, get up. We can still do this. And you still didn't see any more excitement on the bench. I don't know what it's going to take for them, but I do want to get back to a point here. The Falcons, 4 sacks today. The Bucs just 1. You alluded to the fact that the Bucs offensive line has been giving up sacks aplenty lately. What are they going to do come draft time? Because I know at PewterReport.com you guys are already writing about the draft. That's harsh to say, but it's true.
Oh, it is true. And at 1-8, you're in line for a franchise-type quarterback. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston. Maybe they do need a left tackle. Maybe they need, to start rebuilding that offensive line. They tried doing that in free agency. It has failed miserably. Anthony Collins has been a bust. Evan Dietrich Smith has been, I think a step down from Jeremy Zutaw, at least how Zutaw is playing in Baltimore right now. Logan Mankins is the best guard on a team that really doesn't have good guard play. DeMar Dotson is an okay right tackle, but they can't run the football on a consistent week in and week out basis. They couldn't run it today. Bobby Rainey averaged less than 2 yards a carry. Charles Sims, we saw the NFL debut of him. He was less than 3 yards per carry. So, and the Atlanta Falcons defense is not that great. And yet they're making opposing defenses like Cleveland last week in the second half and Atlanta today look a lot better than they really are.
My whole point of this is that they need to draft an offensive lineman. I heard you on the radio this week that they need to take a quarterback. Well, I strongly feel they need to go with offensive line. You can't buy a sports car and expect to have no protection on it and no insurance. So next week they head up to Washington. Josh McCown still your starter?
I think so. I think at this point in time, the franchise, by benching Mike Glennon at this point in the season, has said they've seen enough of him. He is not the quarterback of the future. I don't care what Lovie Smith has to say. I think that's just to kind of, placate Glennon and smooth the waters to a degree. But if Glennon was your guy, you would be developing him for 2015, getting him more game experience. That's not the case, Chris. And Josh McCown at age 35 and 0-4 in his starts right now, he's not the guy either. So you're going to have to look at a quarterback, maybe not in the first round, maybe in the second round, but you're going to have to take a quarterback that can compete with either one of these guys if they're still on the roster next year. But in order to win in the NFC South, you've got to have a guy that goes toe-to-toe twice a year with Matt Ryan, with Drew Brees, with Cam Newton. And until the Buccaneers find that guy, that ever elusive franchise quarterback that this team has never had, they will be the cellar dweller in the NFC South.
What about Steve Young? Well, with the 49ers, of course.
Or Doug Williams with the Redskins.
Of course. 27-17, the final.